Hello and welcome to the Selene River Press author demo videos. Today I'm so excited that I have the opportunity to talk to Monica Corrado. She's the author of The Complete Cooking Techniques for the GAPS Diet, and today she's going to be going over some amazing tips for meat stock. I cannot wait to learn more. Monica, hi, how are you today?
Hello, Danielle. How are you? I am well.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. Your topic today is something that I've been really curious about. I'm going to let you introduce it so you can go ahead and get started and I can start learning.
Okay, it's a favorite of mine and hopefully everybody else's. So today we're going to talk about meat stock. This is not bone broth. This is meat stock. And so meat stock is near and dear to my heart because I wrote that first book, my first book on meat stock and bone broth for SRP. I don't know, was it 20? When was that? We'll figure that out. A long time ago now.
Quite a few years ago.
Quite a few years ago. And now it's part of this book, right? So there it is, meat stock. I wrote that book because there's so much misinformation out there about what heals and seals a leaky gut. We're putting leaky gut in quotation marks, because it's really increased intestinal permeability. That's the official name. Okay. So meat stock is really important. Meat stock is what heals and seals a leaky gut. If you have a leaky gut, we stay off of bone broth. Bone broth can trigger nervous system symptoms because it has high glutamic acid proportion. It has a lot of glutamic acid in it. So we're going to do meat stock. So I thought today we'd start really basic and we'd talk about pots. Why?
Love it.
Pots, because people say, hey, I want to make this thing. What do I need? What do I do? So this is what we do. Pots, bone broth, meat stock, bone broth, meat stock. One more time. Bone broth, meat stock. That's right.
Love it. Never forgetting that now.
There you go. So you'll notice this is what we call a stock pot. So this is a big, heavy gauge, commercial grade stock pot. And it is, the one that you want to get is stainless steel. Again, heavy gauge, you look for heavy gauge stainless steel, 1810 or 18.8. is the best. That has to do with what's in that stainless steel. And we certainly don't want anything. We don't want to be cooking in big aluminum pots. So we're looking for stainless steel pots. So this is a big one. Usually it is for bone broth, because bone broth is all about the broth, meaning a lot of water fits in here, lot of water. And water, when we're looking for bone broth, we want a lot of broth. We're going to drink that broth. We're going to use that broth to make soups. We're going to use it to make grains. Broth, broth, broth. So volume, bone broth, big stock pot, stainless steel.
Interesting.
So, right, meat stock. This is what we call a Dutch oven. This is another Dutch oven. Dutch oven, oval, blue, love it. Oval, round. I particularly like this one because it has a see-through lid. If you can get them, right? So you can see what's happening. You can watch and see how much, you don't want to you don't ever want to boil your meat stock, but you don't want to have it going so high. And you'll be able to see, oh, I've got just a nice little simmer going on there, right through that glass lid, right? So meat stock we make in Dutch ovens. This is a round one, again, stainless steel. It's an 1810 stainless steel. This is 5 quarts, nice size. That's about the smallest I would go, is about 5 quarts. This is an oval one. This will fit different types of things because it's oval. It's well loved. And this is a 6.5 quart oval. They are both Dutch ovens. The reason we call them Dutch ovens is because they are able to go in the oven.
Interesting.
And not just on the stove, right? Stove, this goes on the stove, or Dutch ovens go on the stove or in the oven, right? So that's where they got the name Dutch oven. Not sure about the Dutch part, but I know about the part that they go in the oven. They can go on the stove or in the oven. So we love Dutch ovens. Again, I wouldn't go lower than a 5-quart, which is what this one is, to make your meat stock. Certainly they make them up to 8 quarts. They make 10 quarts. They make nice, big, heavy Dutch ovens. So I just wanted to bring that up for folks, that when you're doing meat stock, when you're making meat stock, really go out and get yourself a nice Dutch oven. They could be stainless steel, again, 1810 or 18.8, heavy gauge. Glass lid is preferred, would be preferred on this too, but for commercial pots, they really don't make glass lids. I don't know why. In any case, or, you know, get a bigger one. This is actually cast iron that's been enameled, right? So this is it's a Le Creuset. It was a gift to me. You can get them. You don't have to get a Le Creuset. They tend to be very expensive unless you get them on overstock.com, or, you know, these days you can find sales. Everyone's making Dutch ovens that are cast iron, like Le Creusets at this point. I mean, JCPenney has a brand, and Emerald Lagasse has a brand. I mean, everybody's got brands. Rachel Ray probably has a brand. Not that I agree with the way the things that they would be cooking on those shows, but not really traditional food. But anyway, you can find them, and it's a really wonderful investment. It will never, I mean, you'll have it for the rest of your life. When you buy these pots, you'll have them for the rest of your life when they're those heavy gauge stainless steel ones. So one more time with feeling, meat stock. Why do we make it in a Dutch oven? We know it can go in the oven and on the stove, but why else do we make it in a Dutch oven?
Yeah,
Should
absolutely.
we venture a guess, Danielle?
You know what? I don't even have a guess on this one. Let's hear
volume.
Okay.
So yeah, that's okay. So why do I suggest that people make their meat stock in Dutch ovens? Because it will constrain the water. When you look at a pot this big, you go, whoa, there's a lot of water potential there, right?
Yeah,
I mean, quarts and quarts and quarts. When you look here, this is only a 5-quart. If you put 2 to 3 pounds of chicken in there, or turkey, and these are meaty bones, and you can learn all about the bones in my book, right? Which bones, but meaty bones for meat stock, right? If you put 2 to 3 pounds of bones in here, whether that's a whole chicken or legs and thighs or turkey thighs or beef shanks or beef ribs, right? These are all meaty bones, meaty neck bones. The water will naturally be constrained by the size of the pot. And that's really important for meat stock, because too much water and you will not get a gelatinous stock.
Okay, I was going to ask you what happens, because sometimes it makes sense. I'll use a bigger pot so I get more out of it.
Well, you would. If you were to put, 2 to 3 pounds of meaty bones in this pot and fill it up with water, you're going to get a very watery stock. You will not get one that gels. And we are all about the gelatin. We are all about the gelatin. We want it to gel. We want it to wiggle when it's cooled down. Remember that watch it wiggle thing? Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm dating myself. Anyway, so we want gel. We want gelatin. So if we want meaty bones to gel, and we do for meat stock, for healing, right? Meat stock. Certainly one of the foundations of the GAPS diet, which we've talked about before, gut and psychology, gut and physiology. We need meat stock. We need it to gel. So if we need it to gel, we must constrain. I call it constrain the water. Now, you could, right? So constrain the water.
Okay.
Smaller pot means less water.
Makes sense.
You don't have to think about it. And you don't have to measure. Because you could put those bones in here. But then I'd say, well, you have to measure the amount of water you're putting in.
Yeah, you couldn't just fill it up.
Right. And you know what? I'm all about save steps, save time in the kitchen, right? So I got my pot. I put in my meaty bones. I fill it up with water. Gelatinous stock.
Awesome. So we have the stainless steel and then the cast iron. You said you can use either. Is it just personal preference which one you use, or are there going to be benefits to using one over the other?
Really good question. I also want to say that it doesn't have to be this. It could be just the raw cast iron also. It doesn't have to be enameled, just so people know, right? Okay. So, yeah, what's the benefit? As long as you're getting a heavy gauge stainless steel one, there's really no benefit.
Okay.
What it has to do is the weight of the pot, if you will, the thickness of the sides will help the meat stock to, it'll help regulate the heat in there. And it'll also help you go slow and low, if you will. Right? That's really it. So as long as you're getting a heavy gauge stainless steel, they're about the same.
Okay. Really. You kept mentioning that the big thing about a Dutch oven is that it can go in the oven, which is great.
Yes.
When you make meat stocks, do you actually put them in the oven? I thought they just stayed on the countertop.
Well, Danielle, that's a great question. So when you make meat stock, you can put them on the stove or put them in the oven or use a crock pot. So let's just put the crock pot on the side for a minute and just talk about the stove and the oven for meat stock. And because we're not talking about bone broth anymore, I'm going to put this out of the camera. Okay. All right. So we're talking about meat stock, or we're talking about Dutch ovens. So if you're going to make meat stock on the stove, what we do is we bring it to a boil. We're going to skim and discard the scum. That's how I teach it when I teach live. We bring it to a boil and we skim the scum.
I like it.
That's fun. Bring it to a boil and we skim the scum. We get rid of that scum. Yep. And we skim it with something like this.
Awesome.
If you've got one, this is just a skimmer. It's a fine mesh skimmer. It looks a little bit like, it's a little bit bent, like a little bit like a spoon.
Yep.
And we just skim the scum and discard it. And the scum is impurities. Remember, these are bones and they're meaty bones, which means they probably have some blood left in them. No problem. We just skim it off and we discard it. So if we're on the stove, we're going to work with these on the stove. We'll bring it to a boil, skim and discard the scum with one of these, or you can use a ladle. It's a little bit harder. I love these because it doesn't take the fat off, which we need. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we skim and discard the scum, and then we're going to put it down to a simmer. Put it down to a simmer. And that's why, again, I love these glass lids, because you can see, oh, it's a nice simmer now, right? You're over here. Oh, it's a nice simmer.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Nice. Wonderful. With this, you'll have to go, oh, is it simmering? Oh, it is. Great. Okay, perfect. So on the stove, bring it to a boil, skim and discard the scum, put it down to a simmer, and then just cook it. Simmer slow, low, slow. All right. If you're going to use the oven, which I love, I've got to tell you, I know it's summer, so I'm not loving it so much right now because it heats up the house, but I really do love using the oven in the fall, winter, spring, because we're going to use it very low temperature, maybe 275. That is low. Most people.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
When's the last time you cooked at 275? No, it's 350.
Yeah, under 350, exactly.
You may never have done that. Who knows? So anyway, so we put it in nice and low oven. We just put it right in the oven at 275 and we let it go. So for chicken, of course, it'll be maybe 2-3 hours. That's for something else, for beef, for lamb, for pork, for game, those lovely things, you're going to be going like 4 or 5 hours in the oven until the meat falls off the bone. But it's so lovely to walk in and go, what's mom cooking? Or what's my honey cooking? Or what's, whatever, who's cooking? And what are they cooking? I'm walking in the door and I'm smelling, and all of a sudden we get our digestive juices starting and we go, wow, I want to eat. I'm ready. Anyway, that's another whole story for another time about digestion and the importance of smelling your food as opposed to throwing it in a microwave, hitting tick, 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 zzz, and having it done in a minute. There's just no time for the body to get ready. So we can put the Dutch oven, again, use it on the stove or in the oven. I love the oven because I have to tell you, something really happens when we put the meat stock in the oven. Like the meat is far more tender and everything gels and it smells so good. And you're just like, oh, I can eat now. This is great. Anyway.
And I feel like it's easier to kind of, let it go a little bit when it's in the oven as opposed to the stovetop. You don't feel like you have to check it as often or keep an eye.
Absolutely.
Make sure little hands aren't going up there and grabbing anything.
That's true. Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing. If you could do it in the oven, absolutely do it in the oven. And then, of course, I did mention the crock pot. This is the slow cooker. This is not the fast cooker. This is not the pressure cooker. This is the slow cooker. So again, in GAPS, we do and in traditional cooking, we do things slowly and low. And yeah, all of those options are available. And I go through all of the timing for every type of meat you could think of or meaty bone in my book.
Awesome.
So people can check that out. There's some great charts there, and they can check time and all that good stuff on the stove, in the oven, in the crock pot. What do we do? This, all that good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. As always, I learned so much from you that I didn't know before. I had no idea you could do meat stock in the oven. If somebody asked me that, I'm like, of course not. So I'm so glad I was able to learn. I love that I can have these conversations with you live and answer these and ask these questions and get them answered. For any of our viewers, if they have questions, how can they reach out to you?
They can jump right to my website, simplybeingwell.com. There is a contact form there. I'd love for them to join me. I do a Facebook Live on these things every Tuesday, believe it or not, in my little group called Ask the Gap Chef. It's 11:30 Mountain. Every Tuesday, I'm teaching about something, whether it's pots or it's nuts and seeds or it's bones or it's, yogurt or kefir or kombucha or whatever. They can find me there too. And I do answer questions live there. So that's kind of fun. But I'd love for them to get to me via my website, simplybeingwell.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Monica. We do have more videos from Monica on the SeleneRiverPress.com website under the videos tab. Also, please feel free to check out her amazing book, The Complete Cooking Techniques for the GAPS Diet, where you will learn everything there is to learn about meat stock, bone broth, and everything else Monica teaches. Thanks so much for being with us, Monica. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle. Bye, all.
Bye.